Good morning, everybody. This is Mike Burke, Executive Director for the Pennsylvania School Bus Association. We're going to be getting started shortly. I'll do what I normally do and ask someone to please send me a message through the chat function so I know that you can hear my voice. Just a quick audio check. So if anyone could send me a little chat, I'd appreciate that. And we will be getting started shortly.
Well, if you do remote produce, you're staring at a little dot. You're in a white room and there's no one around. You're trying to pick up the notes.
Huh.
Take a look. Where you're supposed to be.
By camera? Yeah. I'll look at you to ask you a question. But the camera's focused mostly on you.
We have some people still registering, so just hang in there.
From Christine, sir. I said, sure. That's what I did. I don't know what's it.
She has the project she's working on now that she sees it on the news.
Is that why she's called?
She's got another district project. What's the name of it?
Probably my neighborhood.
She's on Channel 27.
That's what's it.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, thank you. I see people telling me they can hear me. Thank you. Always makes you feel better. So we're going to give this about 5 minutes. Sometimes we get a little bit of a log jam as people are trying to log on at the same time, so just give us a couple of seconds. What we're going to do is we're going to start off with a brief PowerPoint presentation. I'm going to introduce our presenters today. Really, not technically presenters. We're going to have really a kind of a nice casual conversation. And then we're going to switch over and to a video. We're going to have actually a little video, a live video going on here. So we'll get started in just a second. And I see we got a couple more people.
Mike's an old pro at this.
Yeah.
Also, I'm going to draw attention to the fact that if you look on your GoToWebinar, I call it a dashboard, you'll see that there's a handout. There is a handout PDF of the PowerPoint presentation that I've already loaded up on the webinar for you. You should be able to access that. And again, we'll probably send it out post. Okay. Everybody has been muted, by the way. We do that because we tend to get a lot of background noise when we get a large group. So we mute everybody, and I'll explain how we're going to take questions. Then at the end, we can unleash the wolves and try to unmute everybody and see how the background noise is. But in between, we'll, as some of you have figured out, we have a questions function on the on GoToWebinar. And a few of you are experts at this already because you've been on these webinars before. We'll give it another minute, and then I don't want to hold up everybody's day because I know everyone's got things to do, and then we'll get started.
She likes cake pops from Starbucks. Just to me. Once we pick her up, take her to get a cake.
Okay.
All right, it is 11:05, and I'm going to go ahead and get started. So thank you, everybody, for joining us for our second START webinar of the season. We are doing something a little different this time. We're kind of excited about it. Today's session is entitled The Legislator's Tips for Communicating with Elected Officials. And I am pleased to have with us today Representative Greg Rothman, who is a Republican legislator here from Cumberland County, and our own Kim Sokolowski from Buchanan, Ingersoll, Rooney. Most of you will know Kim. She is our PSBA Government Relations Representative. A little bit about our presenters. Representative Rothman was elected to the 87th District, Legislative District in Cumberland County in a special election in August of 2015, and then re-elected in 2016 and 2018. In the current House session, Representative Rothman is a member of the House Appropriations Committee, Insurance Committee, Liquor Control, Urban Affairs, and most importantly for us, the Transportation Committee. He is now also Deputy Whip in the House, which he is now tasked with assisting the Majority Whip in advancing pieces of legislation. I like to say kind of counting the votes and keeping his fellow Republicans in line. Kim Sokolowski, I've never had to do a bio for Kim, but I'll do one here. Kim has drawn over 20 years of experience working with various elements in Pennsylvania government to represent and advocate for her clients' interests before government officials. She's represented the interests of our industry for over 13 years with PSBA. Her knowledge of the inner workings of the Pennsylvania General Assembly derives from serving as a legislative assistant in the House, Executive Director of the Senate Law and Justice Committee and the Senate Aging and Youth Committee, and she also served as Chief of Staff to Senator David Heckler. So we're pleased to have both of them with us. A little bit of housekeeping for you all. This is being recorded, so you'll be able to access this recording later on. The handout has been added to the webinar, so you should be able to access the PowerPoint. We're going to take questions through the question function that is located on the webinar dashboard that you should have up on your screen because we have everybody on mute just to shield out the background noise. So you should all be able to see the PowerPoint up on your screen. I'm going to turn this over to Kim Sokolowski right now. Kim's going to walk through some sort of lay the groundwork for us and talk a little bit about lobbying, a little bit about what BIR does, and kind of lay the groundwork for our interview with Representative Rothman. So Kim, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mike. Good morning, everybody. Who are we? Lobbyists at Buchanan, Ingersoll, and Rooney attempts to influence legislative or administrative action on behalf of clients such as the PSBA.
Well, hold on a minute.
Hold on. Okay, there we go.
Sorry.
Okay. We educate, we advocate, and we build relationships. As Mike mentioned, we have represented the School Bus Association as your lobbyist since 2008. Along with Mike Burke, we put a face to the name of PSBA at the Capitol. Many of you know Matt Fine. Matt is a very great assistant with me here at the PSBA representing you guys at the Capitol. So thank you, Matt, for everything you do for the School Bus Association as well. And Mike already mentioned what Representative Greg Rothman represents the 87th District in Cumberland County. He's actually my legislator as well as Mike's, and we're very proud to have him representing us in Cumberland County. What is the purpose of lobbying? The purpose of lobbying is to speak with a unified voice in an effort to impact policy-making decisions. Many of you may be surprised that there's actually 253 members of the General Assembly, 203 members of the House, and 50 members of the Senate. The Republicans are in the majority in both the House and the Senate at this time, and of course we've got Governor Tom Wolf, and there are over 30 state agencies and boards. So this is making decisions each day which impact your daily lives in your home, work, school, etc. That's a lot of members of the General Assembly that we work with on a day-to-day basis here in Harrisburg. Can you really have an impact? You are an invaluable source of information for legislators and their staff. Last session, there were nearly 4,000 bills introduced. I've actually seen sometimes where there's 5,000 bills introduced in a session. Session for Pennsylvania is a 2-year cycle, so that's 4,000 bills that were introduced that are what we consider to be live for 2 years. Legislators rely on their constituents, such as yourselves, to familiarize them with the contents of many bills. As someone who's truly on the front line, such as yourselves, you are in a position to explain with credibility the real-life impact of legislative decisions on your business. Nobody knows the business like you do, and that's why you guys are so valuable so you guys can explain to the legislators what it is that impacts you so that they can help you here in Harrisburg. You guys are the experts in pupil transportation, and we rely upon you to help the legislators understand all the policy implications. What can you do? You can find out who your legislators are by going to the link that we have on the board. Many of you already know your legislators, but if you don't, this is a very good tool for you to use. And you can research your legislators, their biographies are available, the committee assignments that they belong to, the school districts that represent their districts are available as well. You can schedule an introductory meeting here at Buchanan. We can help you do that, as well as Mike Burke and the folks at the PSBA. You can host a legislator at your facility. Everybody who's heard me talk knows that is one of the most important things I think you can do as a constituent for your legislators is to have them at your facility. And I believe Representative Rothman will go into that in greater detail here shortly. But that way they can actually see a live operation, and you guys can really have a candid conversation with them. You can attend a political event or a fundraiser.
All right. Well, thank you, Kim. So that was hopefully to lay the groundwork for everything. By the way, the link you see up there for finding your legislator is on the PSBA website. And now what we're going to do is we're going to switch gears a little bit here, and this is when we say a collective prayer for technology, and we start to see about sharing our webcam and see if this is actually going to work. And I'm going to then see if this will. Bear with us a minute. Let me just make sure that. Bear with us 1 second, folks. This worked in practice. What happened? Now what happened? Oh, they can see you.
Oh.
All right. That's great. Thank you. All right. So it's not showing up on my screen, but guess what? They can see you. Thank you, Sean. All right. So while we're not showing up on our screen, what you have in front of you is I'm glad to introduce Representative Greg Rothman, and we have Kim Sokolowski. So we're going to turn this over to Kim. Kim's got some questions. This is really a free-flowing interview. And we're just looking forward. And one of the things that we didn't mention in our introductions is that Representative Rothman really is also a small business owner, like our members. So he can very much relate to the experiences that he's had as a small business owner, having lobbied the legislature himself and through his work. So I'm going to turn this over to Kim and Greg, and Representative Rothman, I'll let you go ahead, and I'll let you go on. I don't know if Representative Rothman wanted to open up with anything.
Well, I was just going to say I have a much better face for audio than video, so it wouldn't bother me. But thank you for having me, and I want to thank all of you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to attend virtually this session. And I'm honored to be here with Kim and Mike and the Pennsylvania School Bus Association. So thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming over. All right, we're going to ask you a couple questions. So this is a good opportunity for our folks to hear from a legislator, in a casual conversation, things that do impact you and how you can help us and how we can help you. So Greg, Representative Rothman, how does a lobbyist play a role in your day-to-day work?
Yeah, you imagine how we deal with our auto mechanic or our lawyer or our accountant or even our doctor. The most important part of the relationship is trust. So the relationships I have with lobbyists like Kim is that I trust you. So if you tell me something, and we're going at sometimes 1 million miles an hour, and legislation's flying around. You mentioned 5,000 pieces of legislation. The House of Representatives passed 256 pieces of legislation already this year. So your role is to educate me, to advocate on behalf of your clients, but the most important part of the relationship, I think, is trust. Because if you tell me something, if Kim Sokolowski tells me something, I know it's true. And I hate to say this, but not everything you hear up in the Capitol is true. So, and I'm like I believe half of what I see and none of what I hear guy, but if you tell me something, I know it's true.
Okay, great, thank you. How do your constituents play a role in the legislative process? Can you give me an example?
Yeah, so and it's great. What's great about America is with this democracy. So everybody is equally important. Everyone has one vote, one person, one vote. But we're also a republic, so I'm a representative. And literally, the term is representative, I need to represent my district. So more and more you read co-sponsorship memos that come out from other legislators to say, the reason I'm introducing this legislation is because a constituent brought it to my attention or a local business brought it to my attention. Since you are on the front lines, you see how government affects your life for better or for worse. And a lot of times it's for worse. And why do we have this antiquated rule? Or I think we worked on a piece of legislation together having to do with the physicals for your bus drivers,
Right.
which was just common sense. I mean, the way when you did your physicals didn't line up with the insurance, and our regulation, I think, was 10 months, and insurance companies only pay for physicals every year.
Right.
So there's a sort of a common sense solution that I don't think anybody voted against.
Right.
But we wouldn't have known about it if it wasn't for a constituent bringing it to you and you bringing it to us.
Yeah, great. Thank you. What do you think is the most effective method a constituent can communicate with the legislator? What works best for you?
Yeah, so you know way more about the Senate than I do, but for the House, we represent 64,000 people. And so they talk about town hall meetings. I have town hall meetings at the local Giant, at Wegmans, at Target, at Starbucks, at Dunkin' Donuts. Face-to-face is really the best way. Now, people communicate differently. Different generations communicate differently. I still get written letters, and if I get a written letter from a constituent, I write back a written letter. I get texts, I send a text back. If I get an email, so we try to respond. If someone calls, we try to follow up with a phone call, but the reality is face-to-face is the best way. And so building up that relationship and that trust as a constituent with the legislator, where, you can run into me at the grocery store and say, hey, can you help out on this problem we're having? So I think face-to-face.
Okay, face-to-face. Can you share the value of a constituent small business owner meeting with the legislators?
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, I mean, since you are so important to the legislator, because you are the constituent, you are the small business that's employing other constituents, and specifically in your case, you're the people who are transporting my constituents' children to school every day, and you have probably the most important job in that process, because you got to get them to the school safely. So me knowing you and having a relationship with you again, it builds up the trust. And maybe you never get. I mean, I go to the doctor once a year, but I'm glad I have the phone number of my doctor, and I'm glad I can get an appointment with my doctor when I call him. And it's almost the same. I mean, the same thing with an accountant or lawyer. I mean, you hope you never need a lawyer, right? Or but you do in having that relationship. So it's the same thing. So maybe there are no issues that I need to work on for you, but it's better you have that relationship
in advance.
Right.
Yeah. Better to have the relationship in advance of a crisis coming along too, I'm sure. All right. So what are some of the things you'd like to hear from them when you meet them? And I think more importantly, what is it that they say that is helpful and that isn't helpful for them? Like, what kind of approach do some people take with you that necessarily isn't like the right approach to take?
Yeah, I was a Marine, so like I'm used to getting yelled at, but it never really worked with me. Like I don't get motivated by people yelling at me. I mean, and maybe some people do. I don't. I mean, I'm a human being, so I probably get motivated more with affirmation or, say something nice, like, hey, you're, we appreciate that you show up. We don't necessarily, or people say, you write well. I don't necessarily agree with what you write, but you write well. But from your standpoint, though, I think consistency and powers in numbers, and that's why associations are good, as opposed to, one person coming and saying, hey, I have this issue. Coming as a group is there's power in numbers. So an association is a good part of the process. But I think consistency and I mean, just not a funny story, but there was a proposal that an industry I was fighting against because an industry didn't want it. It was a certain fee, and then all of a sudden, one of the bigger members of the group said, "Oh no, we're okay with this." I think it was a bank shares tax or something. And so here we're opposing increasing the bank share tax, but they ended up, some of the bigger banks wanted it. So they said, we're okay with it because we're going to get something else we want. So that consistency is important because, again, there are, with literally hundreds of pieces of legislation that we have to make decisions on, we can't find out about it. We can't verify everything. So we need that representation. It makes my job easier.
Right. That's good. As your experience as a small business owner, what do you see, what has benefited you on the Hill as being a small business owner? What can our folks bring to the table that can help
Yeah, I think it's made me empathetic, because I appreciate what you do in the private sector, and most importantly, and it's been part of my mission in the Capitol to explain to people that our revenues that fund our government and come from the private sector,
Mm-hmm.
and it's the businesses that employ the people that allow them to buy houses, to pay school taxes. It's the businesses that pay the corporate net income tax or pay the business taxes that fund government, that allow us to then provide these services. And so we need to treat the private sector with that reverence.
Right.
And if you think about the public education process, school bus drivers are a private sector solution in the public education system. So I grew up in the private sector. I was for 30 years. I worked for and then ran a small business. I understand how government can put burdens, including the regulatory burdens, on businesses, and so I think it's helped make me more empathetic.
Yeah, great. And shifting gears from the small business owner, going back to the Capitol, what do you see the House Transportation Committee taking up this fall? Anything?
Yeah, so if you notice, which I'm sure your members do, there's a lot of construction going on.
Mm-hmm.
It's part of the infrastructure. That's been a major focus, and I think both Democrats and Republicans can agree that a core function of government is infrastructure. Infrastructure is what the roads and the bridges, even going so far as broadband, but we have to have the resources for the roads. And so there have been some discussions on how we better fund the infrastructure. The governor has his proposal. The Republicans have our own proposals, but clearly that's an important role of government. Me personally, I have a lot of people who work in the construction industry, on road construction, and when I meet with the companies that hire these people that do the construction on roads, the number one thing they're concerned about is bringing their workers home safely. So my bill passed on some work zone safety.
Right.
I think the school bus cameras.
Mm-hmm.
So it's one thing to have good roads that people can safely get places on, but we need to also do something about we have way too many accidents on our roads.
Mm-hmm.
And so work zone safety, I have a bill for local radar, which will allow the local police to have the same use of radar as the state police have. And then I think also there's some, as a Republican caucus, we have an agenda for first responders and EMS that we're going to be doing when we get back on Monday.
Okay, glad we are back on Monday.
Yeah, back on Monday.
All right, so that was my next question. What are the priorities for the House Republicans this fall?
Yeah, we passed, we had we've had a series of things we've been doing. The Speaker has his Energize PA, this cracker plant Sunoco has out in Beaver County.
Right.
We want to do the same type thing for fertilizer up in the Northeast. Pennsylvania has this amazing abundance of natural gas and energy. We are a leader in the world now in production of natural gas. We have to figure out a way to turn that into creating more jobs in manufacturing. Regulatory reform is a priority. But if you see that our last budget, we had a surplus. We put $313 million in a rainy day fund.
Right.
We believe in the Republican caucus that is a result of us resisting taxes. The governor wanted to have broad tax increases, and we said no. And so we've been able to actually, we believe that if you leave the private sector and the free market an opportunity to innovate and to be incented to grow, that they will. And we're at our lowest unemployment rate in Pennsylvania, I think, in 50 years. So it's exciting.
Great.
Okay, I'll open this up. First of all, I don't have any questions on my list yet. Normally I'll see if anyone has any questions. If you do, feel free to type them in. I have a quick follow-up. Going back to communicating business owners meeting with you. Is there anything specific, details that they could give to you about their businesses that could make a difference, that you need to know about them that help you?
Yeah, so I ran a real estate company. So I tell people I know everything there is to know about real estate. And I also am a part owner of a minor league baseball team, so I know a little bit about baseball. but I knew nothing about school buses. And so I went to Roar Bus up the Schrantzes. It took me up, and I drove a school bus. And I think every legislator should drive a school bus.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm in the school bus with 3 other people, and I don't generally get nervous, but I think I hit a curb maybe. But I mean, to then add to that the fact that, you know, you've got screaming kids, 50 or 60 screaming kids on the bus, and you have the pressure of cars, you know, being on the road. I think that this is part of the empathy and part of to understand what you go through and how important it is. And so that experience of driving a school bus, I think, has helped me to be a legislator, so that when Kim calls and says, hey, we're going to have a major cut in the governor's proposal, cut funding of public transportation. Well, I understand why you need new buses, why you need good bus drivers,
Mm-hmm.
why you need, I mean, you're still the way we get our children to school, and we need to promote that. So I think that experience, you know, it's the same. I went through a plant and took a tour of a plant where they make aluminum window casements. But being there, I learned about why, you know, they do drug testing, because you don't want someone who's been using drugs to be next to furnaces that are 1,800 degrees.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Right.
so the more you can, and by the way, I think I speak for the 253 people up there. We don't know everything.
Mm-hmm.
So if it's something that it's squeaky wheel, something that you want them to learn about, and I think close to 45% of our budget goes to public education. And when you add in the local match, it's getting close to $30 billion. Getting our children to that public education should be a priority to every legislator.
And as far as specific, like when you went up as owner of a real estate business, what kind of details did you find it useful to talk? I mean, we try to tell our folks to talk about the number of employees they have, economic impact. Is that useful?
Absolutely, sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and what I was advocating as a real estate agent was home ownership and private property and private sector solutions. I mean, there is government owned housing, but you don't want to live there, right? I mean, it's you know, we're doing more and more pushing for third party private sector solutions to government functions, and so when you get your car inspected, you have inspected by a private garage. It's not you don't go to PennDOT to do it. When you get your physical to play high school sports, you don't go to the Department of Health physicians. You go to your private physicians, and so it's the same in your business, that there are private sector solutions. I mean, it's that's what we should be starting with. We should be starting with, well, can the private sector do it? And if they can't, or we want government to do it because something's just too big. But even that, I mean, we, you know, we're trying to make government more efficient and more responsive. And people always talk about when you want government to be more like a business. Well, it can't necessarily be like a business because it's not about profit either. But most businesses that I've been involved with, the first thing isn't profit. The first thing is good service, providing something to someone. In your case, getting the students there. And I'm pretty sure that's what people from Roar think about when they wake up in the morning.
Yep.
Getting the kids safely to school, not their bottom line.
Absolutely. All right, well, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. Yeah, Kim.
Can I ask,
Sure.
just a curiosity, we have a lobby day from time to time. Can you give me your opinion? Are they effective?
Sure, yeah.
When we all come in mass and we kind of have a breakfast and I know you joined us last year at the one we had last year, but there's so many lobby days. There are, you know, like on any given day at the Capitol, you can have up to 7 different groups up there. Is it overwhelming, or trying to find the right fit for us so that it would be impactful but not overwhelming as well?
Yeah, look, if there's a specific issue, especially budget time, I think they're helpful. But I think it's more helpful to have a relationship, a one-on-one relationship with your legislator. I mean, you as a lobbyist and Mike with the association has to have all 203 legislators, or 253 if you include the Senate. There has to be one person in that district that they say, that's the person. If you need to get to Greg Rothman, you call.
Right.
called John Strauss, right? I mean,
Right.
that's the type of, I think, the most effective thing. But again, I've only been there for 5 years, so I mean, I still haven't figured out all the bathrooms, and I don't know. There's apparently a fitness center I've never been
Oh,
to.
sure, down in the basement on the left-hand side.
I have no idea where it is.
Oh, I can tell you where that is.
So it's, you know, which is why having a lobbyist is so valuable. That you do know the quarters. I mean, literally and figuratively.
Well, yeah, I've taken them through the tunnels before, so yeah, it's kind of benefit of being a staffer before. So that's very helpful for us. Thank you.
I wasn't joking when I ran the first time, despite the fact that I live 8 miles from the Capitol. I had only been in the Capitol building 5 times in my entire life, and that included my 3rd grade trip.
Wow.
You know, when I was like, I didn't know Harrisburg. I mean, I knew politics, I knew government, but I mean, when I would go lobby our legislators on behalf of the realtors, I would go to their office directly, their district office, or I would go to an event with them for them, and I'd write them a letter. Or I didn't go to the Capitol, so.
That's an interesting question too, because I wonder oftentimes, is it better for our constituents, for the members of the School Bus Association, to try to meet with you in the district office? Or the session days are typically at the Capitol, which can be a lot busier for you. What would be your recommendation for
so
outreach?
we're really only in 76 days of the year. My district office is 1.5 miles from the Capitol,
Right.
so mine's a little unique.
Yeah, that's true.
I would think for most of my friends that, you know, are 3.5 to 4 hours away,
Mm-hmm.
if the business is located in the district, it's probably an easier time.
Mm-hmm.
And I think those, maybe some of those times are less hectic,
Mm-hmm.
because in addition to wanting to meet with all the people that have interest in the legislation, we actually have to be at committee meetings, we have to be on the floor, we have to be voting for things. So I think back home is easier. And look, not everyone's like me, but people come up to me in the grocery store and want to talk to me about something.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when I was selling houses and someone stopped me and said, "Hey, I'm thinking about buying a house or selling a house," I didn't say, "Hey, this ice cream's going to melt." I stopped and talked to him.
Yeah.
That's my job.
Right.
So it never bothers me. And I just think being back home is where, you know, that's where your people are based too. So.
And if they can, get them out to their operation too, as we talked about, as you did with yours.
I think every one of you should invite your local state reps and state senators out.
So when something happens, they pick up the phone, they can call their folks back home.
And not
say,
just, you know, I represent Cumberland Valley School District. There are 4 of us now, or Barb, Greg, 3 of us now that represent Cumberland Valley School District. So there's 3 state representatives. So it's not just who's your individual state representative in where you live, but your business, who you serve.
Right.
So you get a tour out where there are multiple people.
Right.
That's a good point. We've tried to do that where we'll not only look at where their operations are based, but the districts that they serve.
Yeah.
So we've been a big push on knowing them locally, and in fact through our own school bus pack, making sure they understand that they can also utilize that locally as well.
Yeah, and look, I have to make a pitch for I'm chairman of the House Republican Campaign Committee, so we're trying to raise money, and campaigns cost money, and so if you can financially support your legislator too, it's helpful.
Yeah.
And making campaign contributions or hosting a fundraiser or giving to your PAC, which then goes to the members. They say it's the mother's milk of politics, but campaigns are expensive. And I just, on the way over here, I was talking to one of my consultants who wants to do cable television. I mean, it's not cheap for campaigns, but unfortunately, they're only every 2 years for the House members.
For House members. Senate gets a bit of a break.
That's every 4 years, but
So,
yeah.
I'm going to open up. I'm going to do something dangerous. I think I'm going to try to unmute everybody, and see if there's any questions from the group.
Yeah, you didn't get in my biography that I rode a school bus through my senior year of high school.
Oh, we didn't put that in. That's right.
Yeah,
So
I went to all public schools and rode a school. I had a 10-mile ride from my house to Cumberland Valley High School. And it was a 10-mile, but it was probably a half an hour. I mean, it might have been.
Wow.
I was at the very edge of the school district, and so if I missed the bus, it was bad.
Yeah, I
So
guess.
I never missed the bus.
I
I actually had 3 stops, so if I didn't get it here, I could get it here, and if I didn't miss those 2, I could cut through someone's yard and get it at the 3rd spot. So I actually, depending on what my schedule. So
I'm trying to unmute people. I guess I can if you have questions in the meantime, throw them over in the question bin. Otherwise, I'm looking to see if we can unmute everybody here. And I have one question. All right. Thanks. You can't catch the bus at other stops. Thanks, Sean.
Yeah, sorry, I don't have.
I think you couldn't you? But I don't think you had it
Keep
before.
in mind that I'm 52 years old. It's probably 30-some years ago.
Thanks, John. That was good. I like that.
Yeah.
It's probably back when parents were allowed to get on the bus too.
Well, yeah, and my parents were probably not. You know, they certainly didn't wait at the bus stop
for you.
It's remarkable. I drive by bus stops and and all these kids lined up and all the parents with them.
And grandparents too. Yeah. Waiting in their cars in the wintertime.
Yeah, we waited outside in the winter. And had to walk uphill.
I was both ways.
Yeah.
Both ways. Yeah, I did that too. Do we have any other questions? I'm not able to unmute apparently right now because I think I have the cam running. Do we have any other questions for anybody? I'll make a couple of notes. We at the convention this year are actually going to follow up on this. This is going to be an ongoing conversation for us and out in Seven Springs and continue this sort of discussion about connecting with your legislators. So we're going to be looking to do a session on this just to continue with what this is sort of setting the table for us. So I'm going to keep watching my question thing here. So we do appreciate you coming in. And Kim slipped. We actually call you Greg because we've kind of known you for a while.
That's my name.
So but Representative Rothman, it sounds funny we do that, but having you come in because first of all, for those who don't know, Representative Rothman, well, right after you got elected, came to one of our board meetings in October of your first year here and met the board. Has been supportive of and a great year for us when we come to talk to him about issues that have concerned us. So we always appreciate that. And we just thought this was a great conversation starter for the association because we're constantly just trying to get folks to just understand and relax to go talk to the legislators. Yeah. Everything we consistently hear is you want to know, you want to hear from us.
Yeah, and I mean the other thing, and I you probably won't admit this, but I wouldn't be in the legislature if it wasn't for Kim, and so she shouldn't want to admit that. But campaigns are also something you can
We've talked about that.
It doesn't cost you any money to put a yard sign in your yard, and Kim was a committee person and stood at a polling place for my special election and helped me. So, I mean, those are types of things that you can do that maybe if you don't want to give up your financial resources, you can do so. And I've never met a politician that said no to someone wanting to help. Can I knock on some doors for you? Just telling your friends, hey, Jane Smith's running and I met her and I met him and, they get what I do and they understand what I do. And
have neighbors at your house, have a whole neighborhood coffee.
It's putting a sign in your yard or telling someone that you support someone is, especially on these local, which, only representing 64,000 people, it's a small district and that's an influence and your neighbors and your employees and your friends, they'll listen to you and it's helpful to us too. So,
cool.
All right.
Kim, anything you want to add?
I don't. I just there's another year left in the session. They have about 12 session days this fall, so they'll be in session for the next couple weeks, and then they come back around the election, around Thanksgiving, and maybe 1 week in December, and then they're done for the rest of this year. And then they'll be back in January. This is not a sine die year. Right. Next year, November 30th, their session is over on November 30th of next year, and then they start the cycle all over again for another 2 years. So that'll be an exciting time. I think 2020 is going to be a very busy year. And but other than that,
Well, we thank you. I thank you both. This was a first for us. So we appreciate that. Just again, a reminder to everybody, this will be recorded. You'll be getting a follow-up survey, a link to the recording. Also watch the newsletter, which will come out in late October. There's going to be some information on the school bus pack, on sort of a new process that we've set up for those of you on the local level. Always remember that myself, I'm always available to help you with any meetings you want to set up locally with legislators. We're really interested in helping you connect on the local level with your state senators and state representatives. So keep an eye out for that, and don't forget to watch for information on the convention, which I know we haven't even hit Thanksgiving yet, but we're already planning convention for June. So again, Representative Rothman, thank you.
Thank you.
Kim, thank you as always. Everybody, that'll be it. Keep an eye out for our November webinar. We'll be getting more information out on that. We thank you again for tuning in, and hope everyone has a safe day. Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
That was fun.
That was fun.